I want to talk about a little bit something different today. I want to talk a little bit about the origins of this Tea Party movement from my perspective, being involved with Andrew and JP Freer and some of these other guys from the beginning and watching this thing grow. And I want to talk about what we can do to be effective. I want to talk about what direction I think this might take. You know, we talked about earlier how you can get involved when bills come before Congress. And Andrew's right. Andrew from NTU is right that you have to write your congressman, you have to call your congressman. Now, people were doing this last year when the bailout was being debated in Congress under President Bush, and people were starting to find out the facts of this thing. They started to get upset. They started to call their congressmen, to call their senators. They were writing. Now, my office is just a couple blocks down the street. I work for Freedom Works, and our job is to work with grassroots Americans to get them involved in the process. My email inbox was flooded. My phone was ringing off the hook. People saying, I'm trying to call and get through. I can't get through. What do? I want to kill this thing. I don't want this bailout to happen. And so we started to tell people, call your district offices, shut those phone lines down, and they did. And this was in February, right as the stimulus was being debated. I'm sorry, this was in the bailout last year. This is when this started. So the anger started to build last fall when President Bush basically said, I tossed out the free market to save the free market. And let me be clear for all the reporters that are here from CNN and elsewhere, hopefully the Washington Post, this is not a Republican thing. This is not a Democrat thing. Let me tell you something. President Bush started the path towards socialism in America, okay?
And McCain voted for it.
Hank Paulson and Tim Geithner, what's the difference? President Obama talks about the failed policies of the last 8 years. Well, he's following the failed policies of President Bush with the bailouts, with the TARP program, okay? Bailing out auto companies, all this sort of thing. This is about liberty versus tyranny. This is about freedom versus socialism. This is not about Republicans and Democrats. So let me start there. And the people that have gotten active on the bailout, the people that watched President Obama get elected and weren't really sure what he was going to do. They had a good idea, but they sort of gave him a chance for the first few weeks. Then he starts to push this stimulus thing. You know, we have to spend $800 billion to save the economy. People were already pretty mad about this. So they started again with the phone calls, the emails, flooding congressional offices. And I told my boss, I said, this is something I've never really seen before. I mean, my job is to get people connected to their congressman and get them to be more active, get them to be more effective. And the phones are ringing off the hook. Finally, people started to say, you know, I don't know what else to do. And I said, here's what you do. Go to Main Street, grab a sign, and protest. This is what you do. Because if they're not listening in D.C. and you're shutting down the phone system locally and you can't get through, take it to the streets. And people, it took a while. Like typically conservative type people, libertarians, we're not really known for getting out there and marching in the streets. But a few people started to do that, literally 3 or 4 people on Main Street in a small town in Illinois. And then when President Obama went down to Fort Myers to do his town hall meeting, a woman by the name of Mary Rakovich was the first one that I know of that protested President Obama when she went down there in Fort Myers and had about a dozen people. Now she got on Fox News, Neil Cavuto covered her and said, what are you doing this for? Why are you here today? And she pled her case. She said, I'm fed up, I'm tired of this. It started last year. We're heading down a road we don't want to go down. And we watched Mary on Fox News with her 12 protesters, and that's really where it started. And then what you saw was people in Elkhart, Indiana saw what Mary did, and they started to protest. And then Seattle, Denver, Mesa, Arizona, it started to get in the hundreds. And Michelle Malkin, to her credit, and Glenn Reynolds were the first bloggers to cover this phenomenon before the media got a hold of it. So they were putting pictures on their websites talking about all these protests that are going on about the stimulus. This is in early February. And then people started to connect with each other. We started to tell people, go out there and protest, get in touch with so-and-so. Putting people together, the movement started just a little spark of fire around the country, little protests. And then what happened was on February 19th, I believe, Rick Santelli of CNBC goes on his rant. Did everyone see that? Something like 1 million people viewed that YouTube video, and what it did was it gave this growing movement a theme and a name, because he said it's time to have a Chicago Tea Party, another Tea Party. But he wanted to do it in Lake Michigan. And so everyone started to kind of talk to each other and say, yes, let's do something like this. Within a week, through Twitter, through Facebook and websites. There was a handful of people that started to organize tea parties around the country, and it grew. It started with DC and Atlanta and Sacramento. There was one up in Lansing, Philadelphia, New York. It started to grow. Within a week, there were 50 or 60 tea parties across the country. And we all kind of showed up. We were at Lafayette Park here in DC, and Andrew Langer was there, JP from the American Spectator kind of spearheaded the thing. And we weren't really sure what to do. We knew we wanted to protest. We'd never really thrown a tea party before. So we started to just get the bullhorn together, and we started to talk to each other. And there may have been 200 or 300 people, and of course the left-wing media, laughed us off or called us names or made fun of us or whatever. And we said, this is the beginning. We only put this together within a week, okay? This is gonna grow. So as soon as that happened, I mean, again, 50 or 60, which is pretty impressive around the country on one day, planned within a week. Now, what happened was those tea parties happened. Then people started to say, well, what's the next thing we can do? Tax day, April 15th. So what you saw was all these people that attended the first tea party started to organize Tea Party 2. Down in Atlanta, the first one had 300 people. It was in pouring rain. But the next one, they started to plan, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And people started to hear about this. And then all of a sudden, when Rush Limbaugh started talking about it, when other big media names started mentioning this idea of a tea party, it really just went viral across the whole country. And the emails, the phone calls, everything just started to pick up. The volume just increased every day leading up to tax day. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. My email inbox, again, flooded. Phone calls from everywhere. People from every corner of America looking for a tea party near them. So we put together an interactive map that just showed people where you could go to find a tea party. That map had 1.5 million views before April 15th. It was pretty incredible. Now, that energy is still out there, okay? On April 15th, somewhere between 600,000 and 1 million people came out and hit the streets, an unprecedented number of people, to talk about liberty, to talk about freedom, to talk about lower taxes. And their message wasn't about, defeat President Obama in a few years or necessarily overturn Congress. It was, don't tread on me. It was, don't tread on me. And that message was to all the politicians, from the president on down to the local city councils. Don't tread on me. That's the message of this Tea Party movement. Now, what has happened since April 15th? Keith Olbermann, Janine Garofalo, all those guys, they make fun of us, whatever. They have no idea what's happening out there. They're so lost in their bubble, they can't get outside of their, Manhattan studio to talk to people, or outside of Hollywood to actually see what's going on. Today, there are hundreds or maybe even thousands of events around the country right now as we speak. This is one. They're happening every corner of America. Now, that's just the tea parties today. What's going to happen in the next few weeks? We're going to turn this energy that we have into defeating cap and trade in the Senate. And we are going to take the protest to the district offices of every congressman in America July 17th, outside every congressional district office in America. And that message is going to be, we will not allow you to socialize medicine in this country. Let me tell you what else is going on. Out in California, the Tea Party organizers out there, they had something on the ballot called